What's going on, guys? Chuck here. You know, 50 years is a long time. I mean, that's half a century. So much can happen in that time. And it's a very long time to to keep anything going, if you will. Uh, Heck, I turned 50 in about, a little over a month and a half, and it's hard to keep me going. But it's even harder for a television show to last that long. I mean, that's almost unheard of unless you're like a news program uh, or a soap opera, something like that. But nonetheless, it's even harder for a live show to last 50 years. But nonetheless, 2025 marks the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live, which I think is funny because we're both sharing a birthday, as we were both, or both premiered in 1975. Myself in March, SNL in October. So I got a couple more months on it. But it's to me, it's fascinating that the show has lasted as long as it has. Now I know a lot of people will tell you, SNL is a very divisive show. And to last 50 years, you kind of have to be. You're gonna have a lot of ups. You're gonna have a lot of downs. There's some very high ups, some very low downs, and this show has gone through them all. But a lot of people will always tell you, there's people now say, "Oh, the show is no good now. It's not as good as it used to be." People will say, "Well, those old shows were just, they're old and out of touch." Some will say, that the classic cast is always the best, or this. Every the show's been on so long, we've had so many iterations out of so many different cast members. Every generation in that 50 years is going to cling to one particular or a cast that they consider their own, which is what makes the show so enduring, I think. But more so, what I've always been fascinated about is the history of Saturday Night Live. Um, while I'm a big fan of the show, uh, but I'm even more a fan of its history because it has being almost as old as I am. It's got a very rich history going back to its very humble beginnings and to a show that with the not ready for primetime players and just barely making it on the air and just trying to figure out what they're doing and that first 5 years, the classic 5 years, that original cast, and then teetering off with the with Lorne Michaels leaving and the whole cast leaving, having to retool for the first time, and what happened then, and then the downfall, then the kind of a resurgence, and you get stars like Eddie Murphy helping bring that show back. Then Lorne Michaels returns, and it's kind of picking up. But somewhere along the way, it languished in the '80s. It went through different cast changes, and it had some really high points, like a second golden age during like the Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, all those people. And there were so many cast members along the way, and again, even after that, kind of like the year 20, it kind of drops, and again, it's got such a rich history that makes it so fascinating for me. But, or I should say, not but so it was really cool that just last year, 2024, the film Saturday Night came out, directed by Jason Reitman, which basically is kind of it's not really the history or story of Saturday Night Live, but it's more or less the lead up to the first episode of Saturday Night Live. The premise or the plot of Saturday Night is basically you're 90 minutes away from the debut of the very first episode of Saturday Night Live. Lorne Michaels is trying to get his cast together. Where he's trying to make sure the set is working. His crew is on top of everything. He's got Dick Ebersol. He's kind of like a go-between between the studio and him. The studio really doesn't even want the show. They're just looking for something to fail. Kind of in a bargaining ship with Johnny Carson. There's a threat of not even running the show and just skipping it and throwing a Tonight Show rerun. Up until the last minute, you've got contract negotiating with John Belushi not willing to sign his contract. Just so many things going on in this crazy night. He's got trying to figure out. He's got so much so many sketches and bits, how to squeeze them in 90 minutes, and what are we going to cut. But it's very, very chaotic, and it's a great, lead up into that very first moment. And the movie itself it's very fun. The best thing about this movie is the casting is spot on. And I mean that in that, not a lot of these actors here, at least to me, are particularly well known. The only one I really know, I think it was Corey Michael Smith, I believe, who plays Chevy Chase and does a very good job of it. But I recognize him, know him from playing Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, on the Fox series Gotham a few years back. And he was really good as Chevy Chase. But not to be outdone, the entire cast they picked for this film, especially for the, not ready for primetime players, do an excellent job at their roles. And I can't remember the actor's name, so I do apologize. But, the actor who played Dan Aykroyd, the actors don't always all look a lot like their characters, but for the most part they kind of do, but they have resemblance. But for this, he does a good job of matching the frenetic Dan Aykroyd energy, that early young Dan Aykroyd, that the speech cadence, his delivery so well. The actor who played Garrett Morris, oh my God, he is really, he nails as he call him in the Garrett-isms, because Garrett Morris is very particular style, but he nailed his voice, his cadence, his mannerisms, everything was so good. The actor who played John Belushi, who's got a great resemblance to John Belushi, and occasionally, again, sound like. I think this is not like impersonations. These are actors doing a good job of bringing these real life characters to life, and doing a fantastic job. Now, the female actors, who play Lorraine Newman, Jane Curtin, and Gilda Radner, unfortunately, they don't get as much to do. But they're still, cast very well and do their parts, justice to those ladies. Especially, I think the one who does great, Jane Curtin. But beyond that, you've got the actor who's playing Lorne Michaels, who does a fantastic. There's like little things. If you've seen Lorne Michaels, there's like being Canadian, he has a cadence, a certain way he speech pattern. But one thing that was prominent to me is I've always noticed something about Lorne Michaels. His bottom lip is always kind of pouty. It kind of sticks out a lot when you see him. It's always been that way. And this actor kind of nailed that in this, just some things I could see him as. He was Lorne Michaels. It was good. The actor who played Michael Donahue, the famous, troubled, very dark head writer of the original show. The actor was great too. But the cast they picked for this really makes this movie. You've also got Willem Dafoe playing was a head of talent for NBC, who was kind of like somewhat the nemesis in this point to Lorne Michaels. You've got J.K. Simmons doing a fantastic Milton Berle, knowing what Milton Berle was like and how he was, and even to the point where Uncle Milty shows his not so little Milty. That's what she was, very famous for doing, and this scene is there. It's hilarious, and J.K. Simmons does a great job with it. But again, it's a very frenetic movie. It's very fast paced. It's from the get go. Like I said, you're trying to punch that last 90 minutes up into that first live from New York. You've got, like I said, Corey Michael Smith. I think his name, that's Chevy Chase, really showing the dickish Chevy Chase that we've all known, but he's doing a great job of it. But also, you can see where he's getting the plant in his ear that he's bigger than the show. He's going to be the big star. He's kind of butting heads with John Belushi, who's John Belushi's basically, kind of like, what am I doing here? I'm, a trained actor professional. I should be doing this. Garrett Morris wondering, why am I even here? Why did they pick me? I'm a, opera singer, a playwright. What the hell am I doing in this cast? Lorraine Newman, who's like the youngest member, doesn't feel like she's going to wait for Lorne to ship her out. All these things that were, real instances, they played them well. You even got, Billy Crystal, who was cut from the first show. He's like, questioning, trying to figure out how can he be on the show? Is he going to be on the show? What's going on? And all the chaos of Lauren is going through, trying to keep it all together, and make sense of it all. And just to prove, everybody keeps asking, what is this show about? You don't even have a full script. It's like, well, we don't have a script. It's not what it is. What is this show? And he can't give him an answer because it's like, what is it all about? And he says things like, well, if you don't know by now, I can't tell you. Or I'll tell you in 88 minutes. It's just, it is. Which is great because the whole point is like, at that time, Saturday Night, as it was called, because it wasn't Saturday Night Live at the time, because that was a whole other show with Howard Cosell, which is why the show was called NBC Saturday Night. But it was hard to explain because it was unknown. No one really knew what they were doing and going live. It was just, these young, improv actors, comedians, whatever, just doing whatever. Which made it so different. Now it's, people say it's lost its luster. It's not, the heart of anything as it was in the 70s, which is probably true. But again, they're looking at, it was a brand new thing. Now, 50 years online, it's kind of hard to be brand new and stay relevant. But, you do what you can. But it's a great look into that time of the unknown. And again, you watch the movie and you're transported to that time. They do a great, the set is great. It all looks like the original, Studio 8H, the sets, the costumes. You're really just back in 1975. Even the point, I think, Jason Reitman even said that he filmed on 16 millimeter because he wanted it on film. One had that feel. And you can see the kind of grainy. It just feels like a 70s, early 80s kind of film, and it's a great touch. The music in it too. The composer who doubles as their first musical guest, which I cannot remember off the top of my head now. I do apologize. But the music he's composed is so not traditional orchestral score. He's got it's a very, there's a lot of bongo drums, a lot of chaotic music, which, as he explained, he's kind of fit what's going on with, the events leading up to the show. Everything is like, all these pieces coming at you, and how do you put them together and make them fit? And he gives you that kind of frenetic, chaotic, but yet smooth, and it works all at the same time. So many different pieces coming together to form one, and it really fits what Saturday Night was. Yeah, all these different pieces, different, between the writers, the costumers, the prop people, the cast, all these different pieces all coming together to do this one thing. So the music is just a great different touch. One of the cool things about it is the very opening too is got the very long one take tracking shot they do to kind of introduce everybody really quickly as you're going through the dressing room and through the studio, and you're meeting every character and getting an idea who they are. And it was, again, it's great, one big long great take. It's awesome. But this was a lot of fun. You've also got one actor, again, I can't remember his name, I'll put it up here, who's doing double duty playing Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson. Because for those who don't know, the original first season of Saturday Night Live included Jim Henson's Muppets, and they were this weird land from the land of Gorch or something. And this is the idea of they wanted to do adult Muppets, which no one liked. It didn't really work out. I think Michael O'Donoghue was quoted as saying, "I don't write for felt." He just hated the Muppets. They all hated the Muppets. And honestly, they weren't very good in that first season. So they were dumped. But they make fun of that in this movie, which is really cool. And then the actor who does Jim Henson is sweet and hilarious, but he's also funny in the Andy Kaufman role because he's staying in Andy Kaufman's foreign man character the whole time, because that's when he came on to SNL, he did his famous Mighty Mouse bit. So he's walking around his base saying, "Thank you very much," doing that whole character the whole time, and meets up. They have a llama backstage because God knows why, but it's like, that's so fluffy. It's hilarious. But I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out there, but the point is the movie is very fun. I don't think it got a lot. It was kind of low key, talked about release. I don't think it got a lot of attention, but I think it did very well critically, I believe. But I really think it definitely needs to be seen, even if you're not a fan of Saturday Night Live. I think it's a fun watch. I say it just came out on Blu-ray not too long ago, and it's a very simple Blu-ray. Nothing too much on it. There are some nice special features on here. Basically, you have a little making of, and we talk about everything went through, little small profiles of the cast, who they play, and talk about what they were doing to get in the role. Some great 60 millimeter behind the scenes footage, some costume tests and walkthroughs, which are pretty cool. But again, it's fun, and the sound is awesome. Just a 5.1, but the music kicks in those speakers surround you, all this different chaos from the stage. It's a great sounding Blu-ray. It looks good, especially the fact that it was shot on 60 millimeter, so it doesn't have that. I can imagine this, if they did a 4K of this, it would look great, but you don't need it. Honestly, the Blu-ray is fine. So yeah, Saturday Night from 2024. It's definitely worth checking out. Like I said, you'll have fun with it. Now, is the entire film 100% factual? I'm sure it's not. A lot of these stories are factual. I've read about them. You hear the history of them, all the great SNL urban legends. But obviously, they're going to embellish a bit. But it's still a good portion of truth. And the characters, I think, are they're very truthful to the characters, I should say. I think that's done very well. And you really feel the sense of what Lorne was trying to do to get this show going, what he was up against, and what the cast were doing, to trying to figure out what this show was about. And to the point, I said, just leading up to the very first Live from New York, it's Saturday night, which is now an iconic thing. Who knew? And again, that's why it's not Saturday Night Live. It was Saturday night. So yeah, definitely check it out. Now, if you're a big fan of Saturday Night Live and you don't know about this, or like to know more, if you don't know enough about Saturday Night Live, there are 2 books that I highly recommend. And the first is Saturday Night. Was it Backstage History of Saturday Night Live? Now, this is an old print. This book. I think this was just republished recently for the 50th anniversary. And this was, I can't remember what the print date on this was, or publishing date. I want to say it's probably 85 or something like that. Oh. Yeah, 1985. So basically, this is cover like the first 10 years of the show. But it's they're very in depth. A lot of all the CD stories and whatnot are in here. Very good, very good. You really get in the depth in the whole season 5, the Gene Dormanian season that was just terrible, and going in when Dick Ebersol. This is after Lorne Michaels left in the first 5 years, and the short tenure of Gene Dormanian, which was only like half of a season before Dick Ebersol took over, revamped the show for another up until season 10. I think it was when Lorne finally came back, who is where he's been ever since. But if you can get hold of this book, this is a very good read. Again, I believe it just released a 50th or a new edition for the 50th anniversary of Saturday Night Live. But an even greater book is Live from New York, The Complete Uncensored History of Saturday Night Live, as told by its stars, writers, and guests. This is an oral history, which is great. And this edition is actually, when it was first published, it was like for the 30th anniversary. This was the revamped edition, which was celebrated for its 40th anniversary. Now, I have not seen a revamp for the 50th. But this is a great, great book. Again, this is an oral history, so you've got interviews with all the writers, cast, guest stars, whoever, and they're basically just telling the story through their, imagine it like a Talking Heads, documentary where people are just talking. It's basically just written form. But it's a very informative book. There's a lot of stuff in here. It's really good. No punches are pulled. It's a great, great book, and I highly recommend this. And as of now, only the first 5 seasons were released on DVD. I doubt they'll get the other 45. I'm surprised they got the first 5 with the music rights and all that, which unfortunately I've only got season 1. I never got to get seasons 2 through 5, and they're attainable, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I really should before they get the prices jack up even higher. I kind of kicked myself because about a year or so back I was at Half Price Books and did see like the other seasons there for like $10 a piece. I don't know why I didn't grab them. I kicked myself in the every time for that. I should have went after them. What are you gonna do? But that is it for this. If you enjoyed this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know if you're a fan of Saturday Night Live. What's your favorite era? Who's your favorite cast member? Do you have any memories of SNL yourself? And I've got I wasn't really a devout follower of SNL until maybe the last 10, 15 years. I'd say, but over the years you always see it here and there, and never watch it regularly. And of course, for a while I was watching it was on Netflix. I was, binging through it, which now it's on Peacock. If you want to go back to those episodes, now the problem with those is a lot of them actually they're all, except for the first 5 seasons, because the first 5 seasons are basically the DVDs that are put on streaming. After that, you've got condensed seasons, missing musical acts, a lot of sketches. They're just really condensed, unfortunately. The more recent episodes are full because they're just recently come out, but those anywhere from like 1980 up to probably sometime in 2000 whatever 20s, whenever they got Peacock came out, that were all condensed. Maybe a little bit sooner or earlier than that, but they're there to catch these episodes and see them. And also I do recommend on YouTube there's a couple great channels that talk about and go in depth on SNL. One of the best ones is what was it, the Saturday Night Network, I believe it is, and they are currently releasing videos detailing each year of SNL for its 50th anniversary. They just completed an episode season 20, so they've done the first 20 seasons, and they also do podcasts, talking about the most recent episode and other things. But the little histories on the seasons themselves are very good and very informative. I highly recommend checking out Saturday Night Network. And like I said, there's a lot of clips all over YouTube, so check them out. Enjoy the nostalgia, and find those hidden gems that you've forgotten about or you haven't seen, or whatever the case may be. Get a good laugh, or just say hi. I'll always say hi. So until next time, this is Chuck saying, I'm Chuck, and you're not. And I'll see you on the other side.